Hi, I'm Ryan North.
I'm Lori Fangue.
And I'm Shawn Wilson. You're listening to Foster Family Matters, a production of CK Family Services. People united through God to enhance the physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being of at-risk children and families. Welcome back to Foster Family Matters. Thank you so much for joining us again. We are so excited to continue bringing this little show to you. It is clearly, we were just discussing right before the show started, actually, like right after lunch and before we started something else today, but how exciting this was and how it's kind of the highlight of our week to be able to get together and bring this information to you. So we hope you enjoyed as well.
It's a lot of fun.
Lori,
yes,
Ryan, how
sir.
are we doing today?
Doing well.
Great.
Still doing great. Okay, fantastic.
From the time I saw you this morning, nothing's changed.
From the misstep we had where I wasn't recording a few moments ago when I asked you the same question, still doing great. I'm a little stressed out now.
Just to be clear, we went to lunch 2 hours ago, so I'm fine.
Yeah, you haven't changed. In fact, I feel better. I'm in here with you gentlemen, getting some levity to my day.
I love how you always call us gentlemen when we're in here.
Yeah, that's kind of...
And then refer to us as those two morons outside of this door.
No one else ever calls me gentleman but you, I think. So occasionally you call me a gentleman, Ryan.
Occasionally I'm not thinking.
Just saying you on a podcast probably doesn't clarify very well.
Yeah. Much wouldn't know.
So,
it's like playing charades on the radio.
Right. Yes. Longest game ever. So
I was listening to the radio on the way home yesterday, and one of the people on the ticket was demoing something he'd seen over the weekend. And then the other guy saying, "Nobody can see you. Nobody can see you," repeatedly, while the third person is trying to describe the actions. It was insanity.
Sounds like madness.
It does.
Insanity or madness?
It was
madness.
Are those the same?
Did they sing Our House, Madness?
Our House,
yes.
That one?
Was it Madness? Is that the name of the band?
I don't know.
Careful, copyright violations.
Quit talking about famous people.
Copyright violations by mentioning a song?
No, she started singing.
Oh,
yeah.
Is that what we call it?
Fair point. So we are.
You're like, no, really. It's like, yeah, fair point.
Yeah. So okay, I'm trying to ignore you so I can move this show forward.
All right.
We're just demonstrating the healthy relationship the three of us have.
We do. We have a healthy relationship, and that's a great tie-in. It jumps ahead a little bit because I was going to talk about what we'd already done before, but I'll go ahead and go with that segue. You set it up so nicely for me.
Thank you.
So we're going to start.
Segueing pro.
We're going to start a series. We had a lot of fun this summer providing you with a series discussion of the whole brain child. Mm-hmm. And from kind of the stats that we saw from the downloads and the feedback we got from folks that we spoke with, you guys really enjoyed that discussion as well. So we're going to jump into a 4 or 5 part series all about relationships, healthy relationships, and kind of what the components are. We'll get into in this episode. Will kind of be an intro to the discussion. And we'll kind of hit on the high points of what we'll go into more deeply over the course of the next 4 episodes after that.
Yeah.
But before we do jump into the content, so that's what we're talking about. But I do want to give a real quick pitch for all of our social media stuff. And we are trying to grow the show. We're really excited about the success that we've seen with it so far. Because of the feedback that we're getting, that we're actually making a difference in your lives out there, and that's why we're doing this, folks. But help us reach more people. We ask that if you enjoy the show, don't forget to rate it highly. If you're listening through a podcast directory or tool like Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts or something like that, give us a good rating, give us a good review. Share it with all your family and friends. Subscribe, hit the subscribe button. We also now, for those of you who are watching this, we put out a video version of the exact same show on Facebook and on YouTube, and we throw up some highlights on Instagram TV. We're all over the place. We're very busy with regards to trying to get this out to folks who need it. So help us spread the show. And I guess what else? Anything else on that? Facebook group. If you're not already a member of our Facebook group, we set one up so that folks can help find community with one another, with some like-minded parents out there. Our show has foster in the title, but we're really about relationships in a familial setting. And you don't have to be a foster parent to get value out of the things that we're saying, and so we know that we're reaching a lot of folks. But the Facebook group is the name of the show, Foster Family Matters. And you can find it at facebook.com/groups/Foster Family Matters. I just talked for like 5 minutes straight. It is, oh, hold on. We have sound effects. Hey, that's fun. So relationships.
Yes.
I'm going to pitch it to the content folks here. Lori, Ryan, what are we talking about when we're talking about healthy relationships?
Well, I think a good foundation is in 1996. She's a professor. She's a theorist. She's brilliant, a researcher, and her name is Jude Cassidy. And she did some research and came out with a theory that there's 4 aspects, there's 4 tenets, there's 4 things that a secure or an earned secure relationship has in order to be healthy and positive, and this serve and return, this give and take. And so what we would love to do is just unpack those 4. We'll give an intro today and just kind of give you a taste of what those are. And then in the following podcast, we'll break down each one so you can expect to gain a new aspect every following podcast. And I just love it because I think if we're going to be honest with ourselves, there's nothing more important in this world. This is how we were created, to be known by others. If we're created in his image, God had a desire to be known by us. And if we're in his image, it's no surprise that we too have that deep yearning and desire to be known by others. And our conduit in doing that is having really healthy relationships with other people.
So I wrote on a bunch of things over here and was literally thinking that there's nothing more important. Like the exact second you said, there's nothing more important. Mm-hmm. Because we were made to seek and form relationships, right? In the beginning, God says, come let us make man in our image.
Right.
And then he makes the man and he says, it's not good for the man to be alone.
Right. So you see the plural in just God himself, talking about the Trinity. And then you see the plead and the urge and the command of him on Adam that we're not supposed to be alone, that we are to be in relationship because I'm in relationship. Yeah,
so I mean, there's the way we were made, there's the theology of it all, there's just a whole bunch of other things. Bruce Perry said that the greatest therapy he's ever encountered was human love, right? More is changed by that. Dr. Purvis said that children were hurt in relationship, which means they have to heal in relationship. And relationships is kind of like physics, right? For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. That's right. So if a child ends up in the child welfare system, let's just talk about foster care specifically right now. If they end up in the child welfare system, it's because somebody, typically an adult, hurt them, right? Which means that somebody, an adult, has to be the agent of healing in their lives. And so if we don't understand ourselves how to live in healthy relationships with each other, and it's going to be really hard for us to live in healthy relationships with children, and it's going to be really hard for us to teach those children how to live in healthy relationships themselves. And so, I was telling a group of people on the weekend, we're doing some training, and I said that the more I learn about the brain and about relationships, the more I actually see these principles jump out at me from the pages of Scripture.
No.
Like they've always been there, right? And they've always been there for you to read in the Bible.
Right.
Bruce Perry says that the greatest therapy in the world is love. Paul says, now these 3 remain: faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. Right? I'm like, wow, it was there all of the time. Neuroplasticity says that your brain is malleable. It can be transformed. It can be changed. Paul says we're renewed by the transforming of our minds. So these things that we talk about in science now, they've always been there because God is a God of relationship, and from the beginning we were made for relationships. All these relationship principles have always been in there.
And if that's uncomfortable or unfamiliar, this spiritual aspect, taking it back to a biological aspect, taking it back to a very practical aspect, that we don't live in isolation. We don't grow. We don't mature. We don't thrive in isolation. That we have to have this, what we call healthy interdependence, where I'm independent, yet I'm dependent upon you so that we can meet each other's needs. And yet that doesn't mean that I'm a part of you. I'm very separate in my independence of you. But in order for us to do life well, we can take a step back in an aerial view and see that the best times in my life were when I was with those that cared about me and wanted the best for me, and I was giving that back in return, where it was a relationship. Whether you have professional relationships like I do here with you two gentlemen, and we have to work in tandem with one another and being able to do that well so that we can put out a product, whether that's this podcast or whether it means helping families and kiddos settle into a new normal, we have to do that well. So there's just no facet in your life where relationships aren't going to be pinnacle and imperative to your own well-being.
Well, and I think it's important to, because, pop culture kind of has a definition for relationship that exists. And I think sometimes folks can get down on themselves, or we can use relationship skills and status and some other kind of ways that the word relationship is used to judge people or to judge ourselves. Like if we have determined that the quality of our relationships are poor, we might attribute more credit or more blame, depending on how you look at it, to ourselves and the role that we play in that than is due. There are some of us who may think that they're not great at relationships unless you've got 500 friends on Facebook that you're communicating with on a daily basis. There's other folks that are completely satisfied in their life with one or two folks that they communicate with, and that's it, right? So relationship is this weird thing, but with all of this, there's that's kind of the canopy of the tree, if you will, but the trunk of the relationship tree and the roots of the relationship tree, I think, can be boiled down to kind of 4 tenets, 4 hallmarks, right? That kind of promote and grow whatever that canopy is going to be for you in your life. And we'll mention those in just a second, but I just wanted to kind of throw out there that if there's anyone listening to this episode in the context of, man, I'm terrible at relationships. Like I hear people, especially when they're like in a dating kind of a situation, describe themselves that way. I'm terrible at relationships, or maybe they've had a bad run at work or something like that. And you might be bad at relationships. I'm not, you know yourself better than I do, but don't just go there automatically. Like maybe you can use this series that we're about to get into as kind of a I don't know what I'm trying to say, like a post to tie yourself to try to measure where you're at. And if you so let me can I just mention the 4? Or
before you jump in that, I just want to say something there that I agree that there are people who are bad at relationships, but there's a reason for that.
It's learned. Yeah,
it's learned. There's a reason for that, right? So, in here we're always going to quote Purvis and Perry and Vander Kolk and Kurt Thompson sometimes. He's one of my favorite people, and he wrote a great book called Anatomy of the Soul. And in this book, he has this line that says, "Everybody comes into the world looking for someone who is looking for them." Mm. And so I think if we're going to talk about what healthy relationships look like, we probably should take a minute to talk about why bad relationships form. And so when the kids in the child welfare system who come into the world looking for someone who is not looking for them, whether that be by choice or by circumstance. And again, I pass no judgment because it is by choice or by circumstance, and sometimes a combination of the two, right? Or people who don't know how to have healthy relationships are now having children, and so they're passing that along. And so there's nobody who's reaching back for the child. There's nobody who, when, Yolanda Deaton, who is the director of our foster care program here, Yolanda and I were talking on Monday, and I yawned. And immediately she yawned back, right? Because you do that, right? They got those mirror neurons in your head. Like when we're wired for connection, that's like a really simple, stupid example of how we're wired for connection. I yawn, she yawns back, right? The serve and return thing that you were talking about is happening.
I like to call it remote controlling people.
Or just remoting for short. And so the baby does that too, right? So when you smile, the baby smiles back. When the baby smiles, you smile back. That's the way we're wired. But if kids aren't getting that interaction, then they're not getting the chemicals in their brain being released, and the brain's not getting wired, not being neurotypically wired. Is that the way I want to say that? Okay. They're not being neurotypically wired. And so part of that is that these things in your brain that allow you to, like empathy, that allow you to care about how your actions impact other people, right? That's very important to live in a relationship, to have empathy, right? That's why Dr. Perry's book that we love so much is called Born for Love, right? We were born to live in reciprocating relationships with other people. That's the way we were made. And so much happens that causes that. But that causes the bad relationship. But the good news is that we're going to talk about today, because Lori used that phrase, earned secure, is that you can get back to a place of healthy relationship with
right. People. And I almost don't want to separate poor relationships or unhealthy relationships versus healthy relationships. It is a dichotomy, but the common thread is that relationships are relationships. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking about connection, the negative connection is still a connection.
Right.
And so I want to put in a plug of, it's really easy for me as a therapist to get angry and want to blame somebody for what I see before me, for the implications and the ramifications, for the evidence of trauma. I want to put a face on it. I want to be angry at somebody. Sure. And I'm very constantly reminded that if I'm going to blame mom, or I'm going to blame dad, who was either addicted or an addict and did drugs or neglect or abuse, whatever the trauma is, then I better be sure to be just as mad at their parents and their parents and their parents and the generations before. Yeah. Because it's not necessarily, it was just unhealthy relationships passed on and passed on and passed on. And that's what the connection was. Yeah. So the connection was still there. When we Google and we ga with a baby, we're giving a really positive connection. But when I'm negating a baby, I'm still giving a connection that you're not valuable, you're not worth my time. And that message is still being received. And so just to be mindful, number one, that we can't put a face, because there's going to be a whole lot other faces on our kids' trauma to blame and to be angry about. And instead of looking at the abuse, look at I hope that your heart starts to feel sympathy that somebody didn't love that person well. That person wasn't loved well. And then the person before them wasn't loved well. And now you have empathy for that person and hopefully compassion of, how can I break the cycle? Because we do know it's cyclical. And how can I help this child know their worth and their value by this serve and return, by looking at them and building these really healthy connections, because I know the importance of relationships. And then my second thing, really quick, all of this that we're talking about resonates in self-awareness. So you need, our hope is that you're listening, and if it tweaks something inside of you, that's probably a mental note, an emotional note of, ooh, I might want to peer in a little deeper in that. I might want to uncover and navigate through that. If we tend to go, oh yeah, my husband does that, oh yeah, my best friend Jan does that, or yo, my sister or my brother does that, and we don't take into account our own selves, then
did you hear that, Ryan?
I wasn't listening.
She was looking at me, but she was talking straight to you.
No, that's usually what happens. No, I was just going to say that self-awareness thing, and we come back to this a lot.
Yeah.
We told children.
What did you say at lunch today?
Self-awareness is our love language.
It's our love language.
Because relationships happen at the intersection of two people, not two people's lives, but two people's histories, right? Because I bring all my baggage to the moment, you bring all your baggage to the moment, and when those two baggages collide, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, at baggage check.
Yeah, at the baggage claim.
No,
is where we have potential for problems, right? And so if we can work on our own issues as parents, then that allows those difficult moments to be less difficult, but it also equips us to help the kids work with what's going on in their lives. And also, if we're willing to do the work, then it allows us to model for the children what needs to be done.
And even have easier, more fluid relationships in life outside of being parents, with our neighbors and at our church life group.
Right, because it's relationships, not parenting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's all about us as a whole.
Okay, well, so we are trying to...
Hi, Jalen.
Okay.
Hi.
Mental note, Shawn, put something over the window so that Ryan usually faces the other way.
He does.
In the room, and I've noticed now twice he's unable
This is what you get for moving my cheese.
Can we talk about how gracefully I ignore the door, though?
It's fantastic. She does a great job. But Ryan, you know what, Ryan? We're going to leave it exactly. We're going to make this a growth goal for you.
Working towards.
If you find a copy of the book Who Moved My Cheese on your desk, it was me.
Okay. All right, cool. So we're trying to keep, I think we're trying to keep this to a certain amount of time, and we're probably about 5 to 7 minutes out from the end of that. I'm really looking forward to hearing what you guys have to say. I don't think we've mentioned the 4 tenets
We
yet.
haven't.
Let me.
Let's close with that as a teaser for the next episode.
Let me read those out, and then if you've got any comments on it, then you can comment. We'll do some closing comments, and we'll tie a bow and we'll use a staple gun. I think we're going to staple gun a bow to this one today. Just because I feel like it.
Okay.
I would say that staple gunning anything to anybody is not an indicator of a healthy relationship.
Okay, so I'll be our.
I'm going to go out on that ledge.
I'll be our
I
project.
want to be in that relationship.
I don't be in that
So
relationship
the next
either.
4 episodes will be about how you can improve me.
We all have growth goals, Shawn.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. So the 4 kind of pillars, tenets, hallmarks of healthy relationship that we're going to cover over the course of the next 4 episodes. The ability to give nurturing care, which
Yes.
I think in general we kind of all think of ourselves and go, man, I'm a great
We're nailing that.
carer.
Caregiver.
Caregiver. That's good.
No,
I like it.
carer.
I like it.
Okay, we'll roll
It sounds like me trying to say the word mirror.
Oh,
Whoa, that worked. That worked well. Kudos to me. The ability to give
I love
nurturing
his
care.
humility.
Yeah,
It's his strongest point.
it's another growth goal. I have so many. Let's not talk about me. The ability to receive nurturing care. So the
Yes,
first one is to give. The second one is to receive.
I think this one's tricky. I think we do. We think we do this well, but stay tuned.
Yeah.
As we unpack that.
Stay
one.
tuned.
Dun, dun,
You need a
dun.
dun 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 sound
I got
effect.
to this one.
You need dun
Sounded a
dun
little-
dun.
Yeah, we'll find. We'll see how much of these sound effects actually make it into the finished product. But so number 3, and I don't think these are necessarily in order. We reserve the right to swap these up later if we choose. But the third one on my list is the ability to negotiate your wants and needs.
It's my
Yes.
favorite one.
Right?
When a no means no, and a yes can mean yes. And sometimes we're yes people, especially in this day and age. And if you're a people pleaser like me, or like I used to be, and I'm working not to be.
For more growth goals.
Yeah. See, just laying them all on the
If
table.
this is all going to be about personal development, I'm out.
No.
Thank you.
I don't know how long to let that go.
I
feels a
can't be
little
quiet
awkward.
with the crickets.
Yeah,
I have to laugh.
it wasn't well placed. That one I failed at that one.
I'll give you a C. Not a
No, you're being generous.
You just want to. You're
I am
excited
generous.
about your new toy.
I am excited about it. I think I'm excited about it because we've actually owned this for quite some time, and I've only just now figured out how to use it. And apparently I still have not.
And every single mom listening is like, why won't men just read the instructions? I have strong emotional feelings that are complicated.
Oh, well, thanks for
that's
sharing,
true.
right? Nonetheless, sorry, but now we're just completely devolving.
What was number 4,
Number
Shawn?
4, yes, the ability to be independent, which I think I was demonstrating pretty well.
Read that again.
The ability to be
I
independent.
think she meant the whole list.
Read the last
The
word.
ability to be interdependent.
There we go.
Hey, Ryan, maybe we could do some tutoring afterwards. Teach me how to read a little better. Sometimes words are hard.
Words are hard.
So
we're down to nobody watching.
Yeah, what do we have to say about the ability to be interdependent? What is that going to be talking about?
I think we should talk about that in the
that
coming
gonna be
episode.
I think so too.
I think we just leave it right here. We've teased
cliffhanger.
this. If you want to know what we're talking about, come back in 2 weeks or whatever the release schedule is.
That's right.
I think we're putting a lot of trust in their desire to know what we're talking about.
The nutshell is that my husband does not complete me. We complement each other, but he doesn't complete me.
Sorry to hear that, Lori.
I'm not.
I once had a pastor tell me that he asks people on the first night of premarital counseling, why do you want to get married? And he said, they give me any version of the Jerry Maguire, you complete me.
Yeah.
He tells them, you're not ready.
That's not good?
No. Because
You have
we're
to have a healthy
interdependent.
sense of self in order
Like it sounds
to
good,
live.
right?
But he
Like
doesn't
it's
make
romantic,
me. That's
but
not
it's
my.
not like-
It sounds romantic,
It's-
right?
but
in
Lori
the
has to
truth
be
of
clear
it,
Lori.
code. It's like clear code on the car.
I'm
Because if
me.
Lori's not Lori and Chad's not Chad, Lori and Chad don't work.
It'd be lad
Lad.
or Chory.
Chory.
And
I
that
like
would-
Chory.
Chory.
That
It
wouldn't
sounds
be
British.
good.
Next time I see
Chory.
them, like, hello, Chory.
Hello,
Please
Chory.
don't.
Spot of tea.
So I think we're going to put a bow on this one. Staple gun, spray
so
adhesive.
violent.
I'm trying to
That's so
think of all
violent.
of these. I mean, I guess you could. My mom used to like
What about
slick my hair back
Elmer's?
with a little spit. You could do that if you want to put the bow on that way. But let's bounce it around real quick. Final thoughts on intro to relationships, and then we'll close this one up.
I'm excited. I'm really, really excited. When I first found this research material probably about 10, 15 years ago, it really started to solidify my own understanding of my personal relationships, whether that was work, real life, with my kiddos, with my husband, friends, family. And it started to permeate. And I found myself wanting to be the agent of change that Ryan was talking about, that I'm in charge of how I want the trajectory of these relationships to go. Now, it can be 50-50, but I'm responsible for my part. And realizing that I can take ownership and feel empowered to do that so that I could have a deeper sense of knowing who I was as a person rather than what I'm contributing to just a relationship. I want to get to the core of who I am. And it helped me in my self-awareness to see, where am I? How solid am I in my attachments and my security to other people? Am I needy? What does that look like? And we're kind of unpack some of those, the relationship styles or attachment styles outside of earn, secure, and secure to kind of give you an idea of what that looks like in the next podcast. But for me, I'm just really, really pumped and hope that this information has as much meaning and impact on you as it did for me.
So I like food, right? I like eating. I love, cooking is like a therapeutic exercise for me. And so whenever I eat new food, I'll be intentional and like slow and slowly like sit in my mouth. I'm trying to figure out what's in it. Have you ever eat like that? Like you just want to try to figure out what's in it so you can recreate it yourself. Yeah. I found that once we encountered this material, particularly all the attachment stuff, but particularly these Jude Cassidy's hallmarks of secure attachment, I now sort of like think about every relationship I'm in, and like in conversation with people, I'm like, well, I don't really feel like I can negotiate my needs here.
Yeah.
So is this really as good of a relationship as I thought it was? So I think that it's been good because it's allowed me to understand relationships. It's allowed me to be more intentional in relationship with people, other than just like hoping that good relationships would develop.
Yeah, it's work.
I know what it takes now,
right.
and we'll talk a little about some of the things that we do at our home to help sort of cultivate these good relationships with all the kids and ourselves, and help coach them a little bit. But I think it's great. We talked before about how we could just go nuts and talk about the brain for days because we love it. I think this is right up there with it for me, and just understanding relationships, because that is the gospel, right? Restoration of relationship. And so I think that we have to, as believers, be really, really invested in healthy relationships and making sure those happen.
That's fantastic.
Amen.
And I'm very glad to hear that you can talk about this for months, because that's our plan.
Just 25 minutes at a time.
My only closing thought with regards to this, guys, is just come to this conversation with an open heart. And we start off our shows with a prayer, and I would suggest that you start there too. I think too many times in relationships, we try to fix our relationships by fixing the other person that we actually don't have any ability to control.
Right.
Yeah.
At best, we've got influence with them, and we just don't have any control. And so, come to this conversation with the mindset that this is about you, not about them. And you make the changes that you need to make to improve your relationships, and then share the link with them so that they can do the same.
I love it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, so my pitch at the end here, like it was at the beginning, don't forget to subscribe, like, thumbs up, give us one of those little heart things. I really like the heart things. They feel more intentional, especially in the context of love.
Yeah.
Like what we're talking about today. But if you're watching
so suppressed that it's complicated for me emotionally. Sounder.
Oh, I missed it.
I have strong emotional feelings that are complicated.
The timing on that was poor, but the point that I'm trying to get to is we're trying to grow the show. If you're finding value in it, we're certain that someone else will share it with everyone you love. Share it with those that you don't love that you think could benefit from the information. We will craft them into model citizens, and you know what? You'll be seeking their friendship later on. You'll see.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a bold claim.
I'm not sure I can do that.
We're
going to do that. As a matter of fact, so here's what I want you to do. Join the Facebook group. Go in there. List everybody that you currently hate. I need a post with names, phone numbers,
addresses,
Facebook
Security
handles,
numbers.
Twitter,
or for privacy purposes, just the geo coordinates of their homes, off their address.
and then we are going to aggressively pursue them. And then we are going to moderately pursue them. We're not going to pursue them.
That is right.
Send them the link, and we'll hope that they catch on, and we'll influence them in such a way that you'll like them later. And I think that's it. I think I should just stop talking.
Maybe so.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for joining. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.